Hello again, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm Chrissy at A Little Glam, A Lot of Mom. In today's video, I'm sharing about a main lesson block on Chinese folktales and the world of mathematics. If you don't know what a main lesson block is, just think of unit study, very similar. So we completed this main lesson block last year, and I sat on the footage for a while. We started a new read aloud, The Starry River of the Sky, which is the sequel to Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, and that this main lesson block was centered around that read aloud. So this inspired me to dig up the footage and put together this video as sort of a roundup of our main lesson block. So today I'm sharing books, resources, and the projects we completed. So this main lesson block started off of the first book in the trilogy by Grace Lin, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. And it reads, young Ming Li lives in the valley of the fruitless mountain where she and her parents spend their days working hard in the fields. At night, Ming Li listens to her father's tales about the old man of the moon who knows the answers to everything. Ming Li sets out on a quest to find the old man of the moon. This book has been our favorite read aloud to date, and that's saying a lot. It's a folktale within folktales, fantasy, adventure, animal characters and friendships, cultural awareness, and the setting is in ancient Asia. First, I thought I'd share the resources I use to keep hands busy but ears open during read aloud. This is very important in my opinion if you're looking to incorporate read aloud with your children. I found this 100-piece panda puzzle at Dollar Tree. The pieces are very small, so this was most enjoyed by my Bella, who was 8, maybe 9, early 9 at the time. Finger knitting is not only a great quiet time activity, but also great for finger warm-ups for handwriting. The kids knitted snake bodies to ultimately make into dragons, and I'll get into that project more later. All the littles enjoyed these tangrams or shapes puzzles, and we later explored more on Chinese tangrams. And finally, working and modeling clay, which I'll share more about this project later on as well. So we paired this read aloud with the Family Literature Guide, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, in a collaboration between Hearth Magic and Karen Wright. So let's move on to a flip through of this family learning guide. We did complete some projects, but we didn't exactly stick to or complete the guide from cover to cover. More so reference to it as inspiration. So the guide starts with a preface, a table of contents, an overview, and tips for organizing a book club. Prep work like scheduling, weekly preparation, snacks, and a meeting space. Then we get into reading through the chapters and accompanying activities like ongoing weekly activities and long-term projects. There is a nature study suggestion on a silk moth, the history of fireworks, a country study and mythology, craft projects like silk paintings, working with clay, and watercolor paintings. There's calligraphy practice, several recipes, and extension activity recommendations. Of course, supply recommendations, and I might just have that out of order, planning pages, and finally, vocabulary. Our next read aloud in this main lesson block, A Grain of Rice by Helena Claire Pittman. It reads, when a humble farmer named Pong Lo asks for the hand of the emperor's beautiful daughter, the emperor is enraged. Whoever heard of a peasant marrying a princess? But Peng Lo is wiser than the emperor knows, and when he concocts a potion that saves the princess's life, the emperor gladly offers him any reward he chooses except the princess. Peng Lo makes a surprising request. He asks for a single grain of rice, doubled every day for 100 days. The baffled emperor obliges, only to discover that if you're as clever as Peng Lo, you can turn a single grain of rice into all the wealth and happiness in the world. As suggested in the Hearth Magic Family Literature Guide, to read about more folktale and legends, so everyone voted on Mulan. This book is by Li Zhan, and it's a bilingual book. Although I don't read Hanzi, we did admire the calligraphy and the illustrations, along with learning about this legend that is different to the Disney interpretation. All about China, stories, songs, crafts, and games for kids. This resource is the spine in learning about the culture, geography, and history within this block. This book starts with an introduction to China with fast facts, a tour of China's famous places, and geography to China's government, the flag, and money. Another thing we really enjoyed about this resource are the folktales sprinkled throughout the book. Inventions and how they've become part of history and culture, family traditions, customs, foods, dining etiquette in China, and how to use chopsticks, Chinese beliefs, festivals, holidays like the Lunar New Year, and the traditions, arts, and my Luna's favorite folktale, Chang'e, the moon goddess. And the last book is Maps, the atlas that we reference to for geography and mapping work. We put together a main lesson block book, but before we look inside, I often get asked what paper we use for our main lesson block books. I like to buy these large drawing pads by the Strathmore 300 series, and then we bind it ourselves. If you're not familiar with what a main lesson block book is, essentially it's a textbook created by the student, made of high quality pages, filled by the student with notes and illustrations according to the lessons. So the main lesson book is a relevant tool for deep processing information, retention, and creativity. So the first entry in the main lesson book is map work. We reference to the spread on China in our Atlas Maps book. So beautiful, so much information in these atlas spreads, borders and cities, landforms and rivers, but also historical places and cultural elements, animals, plants, and just so many facts. Bella did so well with her map tracing and copy work. Noah skipped the copy work, but joined in for tracing and watercoloring. The kids really enjoy character journaling, so here we have several entries. Bella chose to watercolor her entries, and then I encouraged a quote from the respective character as a form of copy work. The Over the Moon Literature Guide suggested a nature study on the silk moth and the ancient practice. We referenced to this page on the ancient silk industry as an opening read. Then I searched Teachers Pay Teachers for a little study guide. We mostly focused on the life cycle. Bella made a diorama of the life cycle, so she needle felted each stage or phase, and then she chose to display it on this large branch. It turned out to be so unique. She did such a wonderful job. So you'll see the moth, the eggs that she needle felted onto a leaf, the cocoon, and the worm. Our next focus was on vocabulary. We used 3-part cards. If you don't know what 3-part cards are, it's just as it sounds. So we're matching the photo card to the vocabulary card to the definition card. And then it was mostly Bella who completed some of the vocabulary cut and paste worksheets included in this packet. The kids made these tiger masks with this happiness symbol on the mask. These are made of craft paper, and the kids painted them with red acrylic paint. My family loves, and I don't say that lightly, we could eat Asian cuisine every day, and because we've learned to cook it very well, along with the views of our own heritage at home. So we've been utilizing chopsticks for a long time. My youngest continued to practice, and for little ones, I do recommend a chopstick helper, trainer, or clip like this. You can find these on Amazon. We also have these large chopsticks, which are actually used for cooking. We pair this when we cook in our wok. I definitely need more practice with these. We purchased bowls for soups or broths and noodle dishes. These are neat because they include chopsticks and a place to rest them on the bowl. This block is what started our family recipe card project. I talked about this project Bella is working on in a record-keeping video. I believe that was late last year. I'll link that video down below in case you're interested. So these cards are included in one of Hearth Magic's Chinese cultural sets, and I'll link that down below as well. Amber has several sets, and in these sets there are many recipes to follow. There are also recipes in the Family Literature Guide of Over the Mountain Meets the Moon and in the All About China book. We also loved learning all about the Chinese zodiacs, the folktale of the Great Race, the Lunar New Year traditions, along with the folktale The Nyan Monster. Again, utilizing several sets by Hearth Magic for printables, craft ideas, festival and celebration suggestions, and more. Amber at Hearth Magic has several sets on cultural studies. I believe there are 3 on China, so I'll link those down below. And the way that I organize these sets is within my geography binders. I have a binder for each continent of the world. So we spent some time on the language portion of this book. I also pulled up several YouTube videos, and the kids enjoyed this memory card game as an opening activity for basic words like boy, girl, car. These are from Chick-fil-A, the kids menu, and we made it a point to collect several of these language memory card sets when they were at Chick-fil-A. Chinese calligraphy. This is one topic that I cannot wait until we can come back and explore now that the kids are a bit older. But we did practice some brush strokes, and the kids made these wall hangings to hang up as decor. So again, in one of the Hearth Magic sets, she has a lot of information on calligraphy. She's referenced YouTube video links in the set for you, along with some tracing templates. More festivals and traditions, making masks. We did make one out of parts of a palm tree from our backyard. We didn't hang on to those, but I'll try to insert a clip or a photo here somewhere. So we read about various festivals and holidays, including, again, the Lunar New Year and the many traditions like the Dance of the Dragon. We pulled up videos on YouTube, which I highly suggest. It's lots of fun to watch those. We pulled out our scarves and danced along. We also made our mini version of dragons by finger knitting the body. The head and tail are printables from one of those Hearth Magic sets, and we just attached small wooden dowels. The kids made a play scene along with peg dolls, loose parts, blocks, and these dragons. Our aspiration is to one day make a life-size dragon. The All About China book references to this folktale, The Nyan Monster. Here is a mini literature book guide that Amber at Hearth Magic put together, inspired by the book by Andrea Wang. Several fun activity suggestions in that mini literature guide, along with some worksheets, hands-on activities, and copy and tracing worksheets. We watched a lot of educational videos and read books about several other animals in China, including the extinct Yangtze River dolphin. Another project we completed, which I did keep but is barely kept together anymore, so I'll be tossing these after this video. We made clay dragons, and these were made out of terracotta clay. The kids did such a good job as we focused on practicing hand techniques with clay and utilizing and learning about clay tools. You can see some of the details here. All of the horns and teeth and scales fell off. I wish you could have seen the details. They worked so hard on these, but just overall, it was a great time and a wonderful project. Another big project we worked on collectively was a board game inspired by Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. So together we came up with the illustrations and the concept of the board game, again inspired by the book. We used watercolor pencils, and the kids helped me in blending the pigments together with a brush. We use peg dolls as our game pieces and a die for a simple roll and count type of board game. We filled in our spaces with trivia questions on not just the book, but also China and some math sprinkled in. So for example, name 5 characters from the book. Name 5 Chinese traditions. What colors are in the Chinese flag? 5 adjectives that describe and then their character of choice. Double the number you just rolled or multiply, and I modified to subtraction for the younger kids. So I mentioned that there was a math block woven into this main lesson, and so we'll get into that now. Here's one of the first projects we made, doubles flashcards. The kids watercolored large papers for me, and then we cut them down to size and made flashcards to drill doubles. Another math activity that we loved learning together was about the Chinese folklore behind tangrams and creating some of our own inspired by the animals and setting in the folktale of tangrams. We created our own out of red kite paper, practicing folding and cutting techniques and learning all about shapes, of course. Within this block was also the time period when Bella was learning multiplication. We utilized this math block to focus on multiplication flowers. Here you'll see that she made cherry blossoms, which are tied to many cultures in Asia, including Japanese and Chinese cultures. So here she's showing 7 blossom with 5 petals each, showing the equation 7 times 5. I laid out loose parts for her to create the flowers first and then onto paper for record keeping and art. This is when she created an entire multiplication flowers main lesson block book. Again, the same process of building the flower and then onto paper. You'll also see towards the back of the book some practice worksheets I created for her as review. This is one of the methods I've utilized to teach her multiplication among several, and I can confidently say her favorite. I've sprinkled several videos here and there about some of the multiplication activities I've done with Bella. I'll link some of those videos down below as well, but if you want to see a dedicated video to multiplication, let me know. During this math block, we also explored place value. This lesson was inspired by the shorter read aloud and living math book, A Grain of Rice. Throughout the story, you'll find numbers, and so as we went through the story, we highlighted these number words to practice place value. First step, however, was the introduction or lesson on place value. I did this through storytelling. I came up with a similar plot inspired by the read aloud. I utilized props for fun to keep them engaged and kept the props in a basket for the kids to come back to explore the props and retell the story on their own. So a little bit of comprehension, narration, story sequencing, and storytelling practice in that as well. My story was also about a farm boy who was struck by love for the Sun King's princess daughter. The farm boy lived on a land that was enchanted, and underneath it were caves of marbles. So first he packed up just a few marbles in a satchel to offer to the king in exchange of being worthy to court the princess. The satchel represented the ones place. The king was greedy and wanted more, so the peasant boy returned with a large basket representing the tens. The king asked for more. The boy had to load the marbles in a vehicle representing the hundreds place. And finally, the greedy king decided he wanted an entire room filled with marbles, so the boy purchased a truck to deliver them to the king representing the thousands. So the kids drew out an illustration of their interpretation of the lesson, and then we agreed on another number to further explore place value. We broke down this number, so 6,000 plus 800 plus 70 plus 9 equals 6,879. Then we broke it down further. To make 6,000, we added 1,000 plus 1,000 plus 6 times, and so on, and finally writing out the number words. Also to note, this lesson was mainly for Noah and Bella, but Luna did follow along and she participated as and when she chose to, so she was in and out of this lesson. Then we took turns practicing place value. We utilized the abacus, fitting being that this is a Chinese invention, and we read about that in our All About China book. So again, we took the numbers out of our living math book and practiced creating them on the abacus. So each color bead represents a place value on the abacus. So for example, let's use the number 2048. We'll move 2 beads in the thousands, 0 in the hundredths, 4 in the tenths, and 8 in the ones. And finally, we utilize the word numbers in this book to also practice spelling word numbers. So for this, I brought out the movable wooden alphabet and our favorite board. I made a fun little sensory play activity for my Luna girl, but all the children wanted to play, inspired by this book and Asian cuisine. I created recipe cards, laid out loose parts, and paired it with this wooden set she loves for my Luna to create pretend dishes. During this block, we explored our sum blocks, math blocks a lot. I feature these on my channel for all of our hands-on and living math learning, but quickly, if you're not familiar with them, these blocks made of beautiful birch wood, and what's unique about these blocks is that the height of each number block represents its value. It's a tangible way to hold, feel, and represent number value, one of our favorite math materials by far. So most of these sets include activity cards, and we come back to those from time to time, but I also like to get creative. In this block, we use them to practice value by simply sorting them into the respective place value to represent the number. But my favorite activity was in learning even and odd. Now, this was just review for Bella, but a new math concept for Luna and Noah. So we learned all about the Great Wall of China, of course. It's one of the major landmarks we discussed and mapped in our map work. We watched videos, and of course it's now on the kids' bucket list. But we also made even and odd great walls. The kids took turns making one side of the wall with even numbers and the other side odd. To further practice even and odd, there's this fun traditional marble game. So one player closes in his or her hand a certain amount of marbles. He or she asks the opponent whether it's an odd or even number. When the opponent guesses correctly, he or she receives a marble. When incorrectly, he or she has to give one. Whoever runs out of marbles loses the game. We never got around to purchasing a set, but I would also recommend a Chinese checker set if you recreate this math block. We took a field trip to a local museum where we were able to visit a exhibit on ancient China and see firsthand everything that we've read about in our books, like the different dynasties in ancient China and the terracotta soldiers. Our family was so enchanted and honored to learn about this culture that Luna wished for her 5th birthday to be a Chinese inspired celebration. And so although our celebrations may not be traditionally correct, we continue to learn together. And I believe that by bringing cultural awareness, we just make the world a better place, right? When we learn about each other and honor the differences of one another. Alright friends, that sums up our main lesson block on Chinese folktales and the world of mathematics. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too scattered. I tried my best to organize it and sequence it. It takes a lot of effort to film while we're covering material because it can affect my intentionality of being present. So I hope you can appreciate my efforts and this style of roundup video. If you do, I'll keep sharing. Let me know that you enjoyed this video by giving it a thumbs up. I'd also love it if you shared it with a friend, maybe two. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for your love.